Hi, welcome. This is Minesh Baxi, and I'm so glad that we have an interesting guest here who can help you with your business. And he has some ideas that I was really interested in learning more about. So he sent me some of his ideas. He sent me some questions that I should be looking at. And I know you will get a lot of value from this conversation. So please welcome Troy resident here, Dan Bousho.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Dan, you've been here for a while. So obviously you've been in the copywriting and website area industry for a long time. So before we get there, tell us a little bit about you, maybe your family,
Sure.
maybe a couple of your interests, and then we'll move into maybe some questions about professionally how somebody can benefit from ideas that you talk about.
Sure. Well, I've been a Southeastern Michigan resident my entire life, except for a few months when I was out in California for a bit.
Oh, wow.
My wife and I have lived in the city of Troy I've actually lived here for 23 years. I believe she's lived here for about 22.
Wow.
We've actually lived within the same square mile during that whole time. She has completed a career locally here in Troy with Rockwell Automation, and I was a former General Motors engineer.
Really?
Yeah, and around 2000, we looked at life and decided that I would be a stay-at-home dad, and that's what happened.
Interesting.
So I was actually a stay-at-home dad before being a stay-at-home dad was a thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was because of that, actually, that I got into the whole business of what's on the internet, how does this work, what
Sure.
can we do? Because it's a nice business to work from home, and it's a great way to help people.
I agree with you, and it's interesting that you said that. And your wife is now supporting you in the business as well as what you were telling me,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And your wife is Chris?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. I appreciate it. I talked to her today and I was like, okay, there's somebody, it was so much like my family because my wife is fully involved in our businesses as well.
Right.
And some people might know my wife's name is Kim, and their family just closed down the restaurant called Kim's Chinese Restaurant, which
Right.
you are familiar with.
Yeah.
And anybody who lives in
Yeah.
Troy for a while.
It's a landmark.
It's
a landmark.
Anyway, so let me ask you a couple of questions about this because I think one of the areas is a lot of confusion, which despite something which has been around for like 20 years for everybody to benefit from, is website. A small business owner has a lot of objections regarding a website. And unfortunately, like me, I've had some bad experiences as well. So what is the first place you would go to tell people why do they need a website, especially for a small business owner?
Well, a website's an extension of your sales force, regardless
I
of
agree.
your size. You have to understand it is open 24/7, and in today's market, by the time somebody walks in your door, they've been on the internet probably researching for as long as most people were out shopping in the
Shopping.
days when the
Correct.
malls were a thing.
Yes.
So that's what's going on. So you're competing with so many different areas that are
Yes.
out there. I mean, you've got the big box, you've got the
Correct.
mom and pops and all around you. So if you don't have a web presence in some way, shape, or form, you're losing out.
I agree with you totally. But the challenge quite often is, and I think one of the questions I'm going to ask you about details in that as well, but one of the questions people have in their mind is like, okay, where do I start? What would you tell them? Because obviously they are concerned about budget, they're concerned about whether this technology will be around, whatever they are going to use for a while. So how would you answer a couple of those starting out questions for somebody who's saying, yeah, I have a website or I need a website, what do I do next?
Well, what I like to tell people is when I come in and work with somebody, I'm not doing anything that you can't do for yourself. The way the technology is today.
That's an interesting observation on your part,
Well,
because
sure.
most people like to portray themselves as, hey, I can do it, you cannot do it. But you are saying anybody could do it.
That's right. And it's common knowledge these days when you look on the television and you're seeing advertisements for Squarespace and Wix. And those are just a few of the offerings that small business owners have where they can pretty simply go out and put up a website.
Correct.
The mechanics of the website development has almost become a commodity where, as you were saying just a moment ago, the idea of having the specialized knowledge has kind of gone by the wayside. So there's so many easy ways to throw up a good-looking website. But what I found where most business owners stumble is the content and the upkeep.
Yeah,
Getting
I know
the-
my problem.
Right. Getting the framework up is easy enough, but then
Right.
you're looking at a blank page, and
Yes.
oftentimes that's where a copywriter comes in or a content writer. And that's why I work for a company we call it Copywriting Plus, because we do the writing plus we'll help you with
Other
your website.
services.
And we do it as an a la carte kind of a thing.
Correct.
So what I tell business owners is basically first shop around. There's a lot of services out there.
Correct.
Find the best deal for you.
Yes.
And there's a lot of great opportunity for small business owners to just really take advantage of the web.
I agree with you. I think that's a very good point. And there are a lot of buzzwords in technology, in websites and stuff like that, and it can confuse people where to start. But you mentioned Wix as an example, which is a free kind of way to create your own website.
Right.
WordPress is pretty inexpensive for you to use, download themes and stuff like that to do it. And I have a computer background, except content upkeep are not fun to do,
Right.
especially which hosting company to use. Do you have a problem? Like I got an email today, which was like scary email. And then I called HostGator, that's the one I'm using. And they were able to answer my question, assuage my fears. But it's still like, I don't really want to be able to have to find out everything and really be concerned about a website which is supposed to be helping me rather than hurting in that process. So let me ask you, if somebody's not even using your services, but they want to ask some good questions, because I think let's elaborate on the questions a consumer should be asking before they go either decide on what they should do for website starting or hire somebody to do it. What are some of the questions you would say they should definitely ask? So in no certain order necessarily, but give me some ideas on what people should be starting with.
Well, I think a small business owner needs to be looking at the most important thing, and that's abandonment. You hear this an awful lot
Yes.
in the industry, where you'll get locked into a multi-year contract perhaps,
Correct.
and all of a sudden you can't find your webmaster, you can't get anything done on your website. I see this quite frequently.
Yes.
So that's the most important thing, to make sure that the person that you're working with is somebody who will be there for you and have your back, because in a sense, they're your business partner.
Yeah, your
they're there
business
to
partner,
help
I
you.
agree. Mhm.
So once you find that, if you're working with somebody, or if you're not, behind the scenes, what you want to find out, you had talked about servers. So there's certain technologies out there that are better than others. Today, we're using solid state servers, which are very fast, delivers the content over the internet quickly, which is very important.
Yes.
Today's society is a mobile society. More today, we're going towards the phone, and for the tablet, it's getting away from the actual tube, the big tube. So you have to make sure that your website is responsive.
Okay.
And that responsive means that it fits on all screens easily, and it's not a whole lot of upkeep.
Yeah, like a cell phone
Right,
or
exactly.
a tablet. Or,
Right.
Mhm.
You want to give the user a seamless experience.
Okay.
And as far as your host goes, you want to ask, what is your uptime?
Okay.
Most hosts will tell you we're 99.9% up. And generally that's true.
Yeah, I haven't had too many problems
Right.
either. Yes.
And then support, obviously, especially if you're gonna try and drive it yourself. You want to know that if you have a problem, you can call up your hosting service and get help that you need.
Correct.
So you had mentioned HostGator; they're a great service. SiteGround is another one. Bluehost is another one, I believe.
Yes.
And you specifically mentioned WordPress,
Yes.
which is a great platform. Very easy to populate that with content, and that's pretty much what I use. I've been using that for 10 years.
Yeah, and for a while, I actually downloaded a theme, started working with it. But like you said, the upkeep becomes a challenging issue for somebody who's running a business, getting clients, taking care of everything with their clients and everything else. It's like, yeah, having a support person, having somebody that they can trust who will take care of these changes, or at least give them ideas on what they can do to improve it. So what are some of the problems you have seen with people's website which is not getting them the business, the attention that they want locally or internationally?
Well, believe it or not, there are a lot of websites out there that are still looking like they're from the 1990s, where they're just one big page and you can't see them on mobile, and they're not responsive at all. And they just have that feel, so you can tell that they're not up to date. You see that a lot.
Sure.
We're trying to work with folks to have that happen. Speed, load time. A lot of folks don't completely understand that when you put a picture on a website, it takes a certain amount of time for that thing to load, depending on what type it is, how large it is. So there's compression techniques and different things that you can do to optimize that. So you need to make sure that your speed, your optimization is there. You also want to make sure that you have a nice flow through your website, so that it's actually kind of mimicking your business, how you see you interacting with your customer once they come in through the door, or how you meet them. You want your website to represent that, because as I said earlier, it's an extension of your sales force.
Yes.
So that's what you want to put together, an optimized site with a nice flow that loads quickly, and it's scannable, I think, is the final thing. A lot of people will put up a big wall of text.
Yes.
Big walls of text. Nobody likes to read those. Scannable.
But if you put too many videos, I've heard that it slows down the response. Is that true? What is your opinion on that?
Videos are an interesting thing. There's many different ways that you can
Okay.
put these together. You can host them off of your site, and the way that URL connection works, it doesn't bog the site down. If you host them on your own server, then you can run into some problems.
Interesting. Interesting. I didn't realize that. But again, those are good tips for have that. Another question which people have is, will my website be found? Which is why SEO becomes an important issue. Some people pay a lot of money for these things, and sometimes they feel they're not getting the value for it. So what are some relatively shoestring budget ideas you might have that you might say, okay, this can help you optimize your positioning and being found on the web?
For a local business owner, the most important thing that you have to realize is it's virtually impossible to get on page one of the organic search returns. So you hear a lot now about the local SEO efforts, and basically what that boils down to is you want to look at Google Maps.
Okay.
You want to show up the phrases near me. An
Yes,
example,
I agree with
if
you.
you have a restaurant,
I always look for that.
good
right?
restaurants near me, or
Hotels
good restaurants
near me,
in Troy, an
car
example.
rentals near me, and so on.
they're optimizing the sites for that, so they actually show up on the maps.
I
And that's
see.
the local SEO aspect of it, as well as making sure that all of your information is consistent and correct.
Correct.
So where you have it, most every business is already in directories.
Yes.
So you want to go to these directories, and you want to make sure that your business is listed correctly with the proper address, with the proper phone number, with the proper website. So when you talk to a local SEO company, this
Yes.
is what they're doing. This is called the off-page SEO, making sure that that happens.
Very interesting.
And then couple that with the on-page, which is your good content, your quality reading, and your videos, and whatever the case may be. And then a huge thing for local businesses is reviews.
Yes.
Reviews are really what does it at the end of the day. So
Correct.
don't
I
be
agree.
afraid to ask your customers if they're pleased with your service. Please
Right.
go out and review me on Google or Yelp or whatever the case may be. So
Very important point. I think that's a very good point. So if somebody wants to say, hey, what can Dan help me with? Give a couple of key points that you can help people with, and how can they get hold of you?
well, I can help anybody with finding where these tools are and how to actually put them into your website and how to make them work, because it's not hard, but it takes time.
Yes.
And what I say to folks is, what is it that you really do? Are you a webmaster? Are you a web developer? Are you a marketer? Or are you focused on your business?
Correct.
So what I do is I come in and I just fill that need. So you can do it, as I said, a la carte. I can come in and consult with you, or I can actually implement it, because
Yeah.
each of these pieces has a portion of your website that has to be plugged in. And getting a hold of me is very easy. Right now, my website is danbousho.com. My cell phone is 248-860-6259. Glad to talk with you anytime.
Very fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time to educate our people here, because what happens with most people is, especially in website SEO and so on and so forth, it looks like a world which is very different, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to be talked into a program that may not be the right program for you. It may look like, oh, all of this is very difficult, and you pay through the nose and not getting the results that you're looking for. So I'm glad you were able to give us some tips here today, Dan, and I look forward to people being able to benefit from that and actually take advantage of either your services or at least improve upon what they already have. Thanks again for watching, and Dan, I appreciate you
Well,
coming.
thank you so very much for having me today. I really appreciate it.